going to open this up, and we'd like to have comments, we'd like to have questions, and hopefully we can address all the questions that you've got. So right now I'd like to introduce Dr. Karen O'Neill, for those of you that don't know her, like many of you probably do. And Karen's got just a few slides that she wanted to go through, and then we're going to talk.
That's right. So let me just repeat what Mike said, thanking all of you guys for coming here. It's great to see everybody. This was organized fairly quickly. I'll talk a little bit about why everything's going so quickly right now. And it's fantastic to me to see in a county as dispersed as this many people showing up on such a short notice. So thank you for coming out here. I really appreciate it. Like Mike said, I don't want to spend a lot of time showing you guys slides. That's not what we're interested in. But I do want to just make sure we're all on the same page so everybody understands the history and exactly what's going on and the message that's being passed out. Once we've gotten through that, my hope is to just spend the rest of the time just talking. This is a town hall, it's not a lecture. And just spend some time answering whatever questions you guys have and having a good conversation. We have a lot of key members of the community here today, which I think is fantastic too. And so it's not just conversations with us, but hopefully conversations between everybody that we're hoping to do. After we're done in here, we've got some just light refreshments, coffee, water, things like that, outside so the people can keep talking as they want to and ask further questions in a more informal setting if you prefer that. So with that, I think everybody knows why we're here, at least why I'm here. The reason I'm here is that beautiful telescope right there, the beautiful telescope you can see down 2 miles away from here, is the GBT. The GBT is a unique instrument, and it is the best in the world at single-dish radio astronomy. There's just no other statement to make about that. We have a very wide range of frequencies, which means we can look at stuff from just a few millimeters big down to wavelengths. Some receivers almost as big as this room, so a very, very wide frequency range. We can point the telescope everywhere in the sky, which is fantastic. And those characteristics, that plus the sensitivity of the telescope itself, are what make the GBT unique and what make it such a powerful tool for radio astronomy. It's why we're here. It's why the GBT was built. The other really exciting things about this site, many of you guys know this well, some of you guys have participated in this, or your children have participated in this, is all the various educational programs we have here on site. So we have the Science Center. It's got just general public outreach, plus it's got classrooms in it and bunkhouses in it. We bring thousands of kids through here every year that actually participate in our educational programs. Last year, I think it was a little over 3,500 kids, something like that, you told me. They came here as part of their school groups, or their Boy Scout troops. So they came here, they spent the night, they got to work on the 40-foot telescope, they took part in various activities here at site. That's our secondary school programs. That doesn't include all the kids that just come on a tour group and come through and do the regular tour. We get about 50,000 people coming through here, just general public coming through here every year, in a county of just under 9,000, so it's really a fantastic outreach center. We also spend a lot of our time working on the next generation of scientists and engineers. I know when people think about the GBT, you think a lot about astronomers, and most people, one of the first questions they ask me is, how many astronomers work here? How many astronomers do you train? Well, in fact, a very small part of our staff are astronomers. Only about 10 out of the 110 to 140 people that we have working here. The rest are engineers, technicians, plant maintenance, electricians, cafeteria workers, the whole realm. And what's great about our site is we do a lot of outreach within the community, within the state, and within the country to bring people in, to mentor them, to have them work with us and learn about various jobs. So we've had mentors in astronomy, of course, in engineering. We've had a mentorship in accounting. Here, we'll pretty much take in electricity, an electrician mentorship. So we really focus a lot on this site, on the outreach parts of the program. And that combination of having a world-class radio telescope, so scientists coming from all over the world to use our telescope, combined with all the outreach programs, is what makes the Green Bank site fantastic, and it's one of the reasons that it is held up in the world as one of the best sites to go for astronomy. So what are we doing here if we got such a fantastic site? Well, let me give you a little bit of history about how we got to where we are right now. The astronomy community is, I don't know about tightly, but works fairly tightly together to look towards the future, and they always have. So every 10 years, the U.S. astronomy community get together, and they put out what they call the decadal survey, the decadal reports. And basically what it is all the astronomers in the United States getting together in a fairly organized fashion by the end of it, to look forward to the next decade and to try to identify what the most important science topics are for the next decade. So what do we really think scientists and astronomers should be focusing on for the next 10 years? And two primary reports are put out, one on astronomy in general and one particularly on planetary science. And so in 2010, one of the decadal survey reports came out, and it had a lot of recommendations for what NASA should do and what the National Science Foundation should do looking forward in order to achieve these fantastic science goals they had. The issue with this is when this report was made, that a lot of the information was fed into the committee in 2008. It takes a long time to get all the astronomers in the U.S. to get together and come up with a plan. The report was written in 2009 and released in 2010. Well, at that time, the National Science Foundation's budget was predicted to be increasing at a fairly high rate, and in fact doubling over the next 10 years. And so the people that wrote the report made the assumption that the astronomy budget within the National Science Foundation would also double over the next 10 years. And that was the basis for their plans. And so the result was they had an absolutely fantastic list of science they wanted to do. And hand in hand with that, they had a fantastic list of new astronomy facilities that they wanted to build. Now it takes about 10 years to build a new astronomy facility if you're building a big one. And so the idea was, here's the great science we should be doing for this decade, and here are the instruments we should be focused on building for the next decade. It was a fantastic plan. It was pretty well thought of. Everybody agreed with it. It all looked very good. Then the economy continued to slide downwards, and things didn't look quite as good overall for the federal budget. Now, the federal government did decide to continue this upward trend for the National Science Foundation. They put a huge focus on science, both the last administration and the current administration. And so they continue to put money into the National Science Foundation and continue this path towards doubling the National Science Foundation's budget over the decade. Unfortunately, the astronomy budget within the NSF did not follow that path. The astronomy budget was kept flat. And the current prediction is that the astronomy budget will continue to stay flat, meaning no increases at all, not even cost of living increases going into that budget for the next 10 years. So this is a significant decrease in the buying power for the National Astronomy budget, and dramatically different than what the decadal survey group had predicted. The result of this is the National Science Foundation's astronomy division said, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to implement this fantastic science under this flat budget that's currently predicted for us? And putting the two together, they said, what we're going to have to do then is to create a committee to review the portfolio of everything the National Science Foundation's Astronomy Division does, so all their facilities, all their grants programs, the whole big thing, and try to figure out how to do what the decadal survey requested within the flat budget scenario. Now, as soon as you say, we're going to go and we're going to build new instruments that were predicted up here, when I thought the budget was going really good, under a scenario where the budget is flat, you immediately have to start taking things out of the existing budget. And that's what happened. So on Thursday, on August 16th, just about a week and almost 2 weeks ago now, this report was released on Thursday afternoon called the Portfolio Review Committee Report, on the terribly original name. And in it, it actually had a lot of recommendations, but the reason we're here right now is this top one. Within that report, they recommended that their wording was the best for the National Science Foundation's Astronomy Division, we'll talk about that in a minute, 6 national facilities, national telescopes by 2016. 4 of them are 4 optical telescopes in Arizona up on Kitt Peak, and they're part of the National Optical Astronomy Observatory. And 2 of them are part of the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. They included the Very Long Baseline Array and the Green Mountain Telescope. They want to divest these so that they can begin building new instruments, according to the plan put out by the decadal survey. And the new instruments they want to build are these. This is a large sky surveying optical telescope. We built down in Chile, in which the U.S. will be a major partner. CCAT used to stand for something known as CCAT. This is a radio telescope sub-millimeter, so shorter wavelengths than what the DT does. That's going to be built down in Chile, of which the U.S. will be a minor partner. And then if there's enough funding, which they said if, it turns out they were too pessimistic and there's just a little 2% increase, maybe we can start building this instrument called the Giant Segmented Mirror Telescope, which again, the U.S. is a partner in the telescope. So these are all, these two are both international projects. This is primarily a U.S. project. There's some Canadian support and a few others into it. All three are to be built down in Chile, with some access as a national facility, but primarily as university facilities that are going down there. So that's the gist of this. That's what's happened. And that's where the divestiture came out, because as soon as you say we want to build new stuff, you got to take other things out of the portfolio. So that's how we got to this current juncture. So what does that mean? Well, first off, we have to be careful with what the report says. So the report says they want to divest the Green Bank telescope, the National Center Green Bank facility. They specifically state they don't want to close us, which is a very different thing. The NSF is not looking to close this facility, they just don't want to pay for us anymore. Which is a bit of having your cake and eating it too, but it's a lot better than them recommending closure. The reason they don't recommend closure for the site is because they repeatedly state that the loss of this facility is going to have a huge impact on astronomy and astronomy education in the United States and the world. So they know that. Now this report is a recommendation. It's the Portfolio Review Committee's recommendations of how they feel the National Science Foundation should react in order to meet the decadal survey desire of new instrumentation. It's based, again, on this idea right here, that the astronomy funding remains flat in the National Science Foundation's astronomy division. Were that to turn out not to be the case, then the conclusions of the report could be reconsidered. The conclusions of the report are also being reviewed by the astronomy community within the United States. It was a lot of really good people that put this report together. You've got 17 scientists from around the United States. They worked very hard to try to understand this, but they had 9 months to do it. They had their regular job they had to do at the same time. And so they had a fairly limited time to try to understand exactly how every single instrument in the United States worked, all the interplay between the various instruments, and how to do every type of science that was recommended in the portfolio review. And so the result of that is now the report is out, and the astronomy community, including the NRAO, are going through the conclusions to try to understand them and to try to make sure that what they have in there is completely accurate. Again, if things aren't accurate, it's not due to the committee trying to make something up. It has everything to do with just the limited time period the committee had to look at things, and the fact that telescopes are complicated and instruments are complicated. And it takes an expert in individual fields to really understand how to do their science. So that's being reviewed. And additionally, the whole NSF plan is also currently under discussion, this idea of why is the astronomy budget itself remaining flat while the NSF budget is continuing to increase. So right now, these 3 pieces are being looked at, and I'm happy to talk more about that during the questions part. So that's what's happening for the report. And now we have to start thinking too, at the same time as this is being questioned, we have to run in parallel and try to say, well, what does it mean to say you're going to divest the GBT? What are our possible paths forward for the site and for the facility? So one possible path forward is, of course, that as we look at the report, as the astronomy community, as the National Science Foundation, and as the federal government looks at the report, they decide that possibly due to any one of these reasons or all of these reasons, not to accept the recommendations. They've accepted the report, but it doesn't mean they have to implement the recommendations of the report. So if that were to be the case, then there would be no divesting of the GBT. We would stay within the National Science Foundation budget. Business as usual for the site. That would be fantastic. A second possible path forward would be that the NSF Astronomy Division possibly says, you know, we really don't want to get rid of the GBT, which I truly don't think they do, but we need to find some way to save money. And that would be what we're calling partial divestiture. That would mean that the NSF would say, look, we'll help you guys pay for the site, but you've got to raise some funding from other sources in order to help pay to offset the cost of that. And then the third choice would, of course, be what's recommended by the committee, which is the NSF Astronomy Division, within the next 4 years, actually pulls us completely out of the budget. Now let me talk just briefly about